Good afternoon, everyone. We're talking this afternoon with Leszek, and many of you who have been to freedom events will have seen the solidarity image on T-shirts and banners, and some of you have probably got to know the integrity of the people that wear and hold those banners. And as we prepare to head off to Poland, I thought it might be interesting to share with you a little bit more about the history of the solidarity movement in Poland. And Leszek, what initially drew you to the solidarity movement?
Um, you know, before I say about me, I would say what happened in Poland and how the solidarity started.
Yeah.
As we know, after the Second World War, the Poland was sold to Russian regime by England and Americans in cooperation with French people. So for over 35 years, we've been really under the Stalin's regime. It was very difficult. And in the 1970s, late 1970s, it was really very, very difficult life in Poland because you couldn't buy anything. We just had like little talons, like little carts where we have the portion of meat, portions which you can buy meat or whatever, and it was just difficult. You went to shops like Safeway, and all you could see was vinegar everywhere so it was very, very difficult. And people decide to actually do something about it, and they had enough. They had enough of the communist government. So in late 1970s, there were lots of strikes going around Poland. It was, the Poland was obviously under the regime, so only the Labour Party was the ruling party. There was no opposition, and nobody could do anything. But suddenly people say enough is enough. And in, I believe, September 1980, they registered the Solidarity trade union under the name of Solidarity, which was the first independent of the authorities, of the government authorities, trade union in any of the communist countries in Eastern Europe. The government tried to stop this movement, and they decided to call martial law. So on the 13th of December 1981, they called martial law, and they were hoping that they're going to, somehow
Smash it down.
smash it down, control the people.
Yeah.
But during this time, the movement grew up to 10 million people. So basically, 80% of the people who were in the workforce joined the movement. And then governments, obviously the police wasn't involved, and the army personnel wasn't involved, but all other sections of the in the country was basically involved. So when governments seen that there's not much they can do about it, they called they finished the martial law in July 1922. Oh, sorry, I mixed that. In July 1982.
82.
Yeah. And so obviously what happened after that, the government started talking to people from the Solidarity movement. And the consequences of this was that in 1989, basically this movement destroyed the communism in Eastern Europe. So what Solidarity showed, that only when people united, they had power to do some changes. So obviously in 2020, we had very difficult times here. Okay. And we've seen that, everyone thought that, well, we can do something, but there were so many little groups who try to be freedom fighters, but I could see that there was no unification.
Mm.
And in 2021, after I spoke to Pastor Arthur from Canada, who was, I think, the only one pastor who, during the Easter time in 2021, threw the police from his church and called them basically Gestapo. I spoke to him because I was reporting lots of stuff into the Polish community in US and in Canada. And so when I spoke to him, he said, listen, I started Solidarity Movement of Canada. You should start Solidarity Movement of Australia
Yeah.
if you're not afraid of the government. I said, look, I've got nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah.
So I decided to start this movement. And this movement is basically not based on any leadership. Okay, I'm not a leader. I might be face of it, but everyone who is in the movement is on the same level.
Mm.
And the main objection was to unite all the freedom parties. Okay, that's why I was asking everybody from every possible angle, please unite, please. The only way we can fight this evil if we unite. But again, how I see it is that in Australia it's very difficult. The difference between Australia and Poland is that in Poland we have the same history, the same language, in the same beliefs. Okay, so we've got lots of stuff, the same culture. We have lots of stuff in common. So it was much easier. And during 1980s, where that happened, the trade union, the Solidarity Trade Union, had big support from US and from the Pope,
Yes.
from the John Paul II.
Yes. Who
Okay,
was the bishop in
yeah,
Krakow?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a huge support,
Yeah.
not only moral support, but also financial support from USA.
What do you think the role of the church has had in the solidarity movement?
Huge. In Poland, it was a key.
Yeah.
Okay, that was this things which was actually bonding everything. The biggest, I think, what consolidated everyone in Poland was after the government decided to kill one of the pastors. Okay, so he was young pastor Popiełuszko, who was talking about communism and whatever, and asking people to be free, basically, and resist. And for that, he paid the highest price. When people seen that, and of course, when people seen that the government killed many people in the mines, and during the strikes, because they were fighting real bullets, not live bullets, not the rubber bullets like in Australia. People got really angry, and they united. So that's what actually what happened is the church, because Catholics in Poland, you've got probably 99% of Catholics. All the other religions are very minority. So the church really pushed everybody to unite and to stick together and to fight the evil. And we've been very successful in Poland. So obviously, I could see the similarities here in obviously in Australia, but like I said, the biggest problem in Australia is that we've got nothing in common. Okay, and it's by design.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, we've got people coming from all over the world, hundreds of religions, not really culture, which unite us, not really history. The history is rather tragic history, because again, it's based on violence. So it's much more difficult to unite people. But I think now people realize that that's the only way.
Yeah.
So
In Poland, as the movement was developing, there was still a lot of government censorship in the media. And I believe there was a lot of independent newspapers and communications that were underground. How did people communicate and how did that work?
that was basically the only way to communicate.
Yeah.
Now, when you're thinking about that, uh, I can see what is happening now in Australia with
Yeah.
the digital ID and e-commissioner and all this kind of stuff. We used to in Poland, when the solidarity was growing, we were sharing everything underground. The people were printing at homes stuff, and just the little kids were going and dropping the letterboxes drops or
Yeah.
something like that and sharing informations. Lots of people were locked up for that.
Yeah.
Okay, lots of people actually were in prisons, and lots of people lost lives. But still, people knew that that's the only one way to get outside of that communist regime. Okay, and again, people believed in that. That was the key. People knew that they have God behind them. Okay, they have support, and they believe in themselves. Okay, so even when government tried everything, I mean, seriously, I don't know if Australians can imagine that, but if you have martial law for 18 months in Australia, I don't know if people can even imagine that.
I think it's hard for people to have
We
a full understanding of that.
we
Yeah.
had here, obviously we had lockdowns here, okay, and Andrew's dictatorships tried everything they can, and we couldn't move in the evenings and this and that, but it was relatively a short time, in 18 months it's a long time.
Yeah.
Where you have the police everywhere on the streets, and they're checking everybody, and it was tricky during these times. Obviously I was a young man, I was 16, 17, 18, whatever. But I remember that, when I was in the trade school, and because I was always slightly different, I was always a rebel, I would say. They didn't like me much. In school, they tried to really punish me because I didn't agree with the school program. And I was open with that.
Yeah.
So, again, it was different. But the people were sharing informations everywhere they could. Not in the mainstream media, because
No.
we didn't have that. We didn't have
No.
access to it. And we didn't have internet. But, the mouth to mouth and, leaflets, that was like during Second World War.
Yeah. Yeah. And what is it about the solidarity movement that you think gives it the integrity that people see?
Look, I think the most important part is we are not about the power. Okay? Nobody. When I started, I never thought to be a leader. Absolutely. It's not my thing. The objective is uniting people. That's the only way. Okay? So uh, we always were talking and we're going with these banners, and we always say, fight for your freedom and rights. Okay? The same, like I always say, one of the first banners was for yours and our freedom. Okay? Because that's all about. Okay? We're not fighting for us.
No.
We're fighting for everybody. We're fighting for next generations. So it was always about bonding, uniting, and fighting together. I asked lots of leaders. I asked Bossy when he was in, I think, Flemington or somewhere in that area there, Parkdale or Flemington, somewhere there. I asked him, will you ever consider to join parties like, for example, the GAP, Great Australian Party, because to me, Great Australian Party was representing Constitution.
Yeah.
Okay. and or any other freedom fighting organizations? The answer was no. Which shows me it's my way or no way. Anybody with this kind of attitude will go nowhere. There's no way you can win this evil yourself. There's no way, no chance. You have to.
You look at the numbers that the solidarity movement built up to in Poland to start to have an impact. It was huge.
No, look, we're talking 80% of the people who are in the workforce. You know, at those days, we had around 32 million people in Poland. 10 million joined. So that's what we're talking about.
And even when like 10,000 were arrested, you've still got numbers, haven't you? You've still got strength beside you.
Exactly. That's because, you know, I mean, at every war, this is a war, okay? At every war, there are losses, okay? But people knew that there's no other way. There's no other way, you know, and the final results in 1989 was beautiful. Okay, because it started in Poland, but it was a chain reaction because lots of other countries, Eastern European countries, you know, they become basically free of communism. And they achieved that with peaceful means, didn't they? Without force. Yeah. Look, we didn't have to. We didn't have guns. Okay, but I always say, you know, that your voice is the most powerful things you have. And if you show others courage, and if you can get rid of the fear, you're unstoppable. Okay, that's why when we're talking about the stuff which happened here in Australia in 2020s, I always say that the police had a huge role to play in it. Okay, and if the police was acting according to the law, were they supposed to protect people, not to protect the government and go against the people, it would be a completely different story. Yeah. But again, because the police decide to attack people and support the government, then the fear kicked in, and not everyone, but most people actually folded. Yeah. Okay, and they say, oh, there's nowhere to go. We've got no support. We need to give up, which is in fact a very pathetic attitude. But some people believe that they had no choice. Yeah. So with Solidarity, it really started as a trade union and then went for social change and then managed to create a revolution. Basically, yes. Yeah. And as we know, the leader of the Solidarity, Mr. Lech Walesa, became first president. He becomes first president. Yeah. The people who knows the history a little bit more know that after that, you know, slightly, it wasn't everything perfect. Yeah. Okay, because again, infiltration and people are changing. So at the end, it wasn't so sweet. But it's not about Wałęsa. It's not about what happened with him or with his actions after that. It's the solidarity means basically destroying the communism in Eastern Europe. That's why I decided to use the same brand name, I would say, because we're talking about the global communism or fascist communism or whatever you call it, because it's the same thing. The people who believes that, I mean, in Poland we had one party. It was Labour Party, okay, which was ruling. People says in Australia we've got democracy because we got the party system. I mean, the only fool believes that this is democracy. Okay, everyone who can open their eyes and see white, see all the same, and in fact they have nothing to say. So the democracy doesn't really exist. The democracy only exists if you give people real freedom, real choice. If you try to control them from any other way, it's not democracy. So yeah, I think there needs to be lots of education. People need to think what's going on, where we're going. But again, I would say one of the most important things is that Australia is a very easy target. We started to say that Australia is the best country in the world to live. We're talking about it. I came here 35 years ago. And for 30 years of that, I was always saying Australia is the best country to live in the world. I love Australia. I love Australia. I spent here many more years than now in Poland. But I'm worried. I'm worried because this is not Australia I know. Okay, and unfortunately, people, especially people who are successful, believes that the government look after them, that nothing is happening, it's all good, and they're happy to give all their rights away for that a little bit of, temporary freedom. Very sad. Very sad.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's really important in Australia for us to learn about some of the history of movements like Solidarity and other places overseas where they've had change and where power have created positive things for communities and countries. And so thank you so much. Thank you for your warrior spirit and your integrity. And thank you for sharing with the deplorables today in our search for humanity.
Oh, well, that's my pleasure. Anything to save this country, anything to save the next future generations. People need to realize that there's no government which will support people. It's always the same thing. Two-party system is exactly the same like one-party system. There's only one head there. Okay, you've got two wings, one head.
Yeah.
So it'll be great. It'll be great if people realize that. And what I would love to say is there's nobody who can save us. I don't believe in anybody except God. We need to believe in ourselves. Every one of us. That's the key.
Yeah.
If we can get rid of the fear, we become free. The fear is controlling us, is blocking us, is basically destroying our spirit. And we need to find it back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Let me tell you a story about resistance. The Solidarity movement in Poland, which united people from different backgrounds, brought hope for a breakthrough. The words of John Paul II were a spark of inspiration to organize protest against the communist authorities.
Stąpi duch Twój i odnowi oblicze ziemi, tej ziemi.
Hope filled the hearts of millions of Poles, but the communists wanted to brutally stifle it, announcing martial law.
Obywatelki i obywatele, ogłaszam stan wojenny na obszarze całego kraju.
But we had the courage to say no. A candle in the window became a symbol of our hope, against which the communists wielded oppression and terror.
Awanturnikom trzeba skrępować ręce, zanim wtrącą ojczyznę w otchłań bratobójczej walki.
We did not have weapons, but we had our dignity, and that was enough to resist. The strikers at the Wujek coal mine were brutally pacified. while 1,000 Piast miners protested underground for 14 days. When their inner fires started to fade, people reignited it anew by protesting in the streets. Our shouts reached the President of the United States.
A lighted candle will burn in the White House window as a small but certain beacon of our solidarity with the Polish people.
And the Polish Pope in the Vatican, which gave us the courage to stand up against oppression.
But in attacking solidarity, its enemies attack an entire people.
People showed us support around the world. We fought even when solidarity was outlawed, and despite the censorship that devoured our freedom of expression. Prisons were filled with innocent victims. The murder of a high school student, Grzegorz Przemyk, triggered a wave of protests. The charismatic priest Jerzy Popiełuszko conducted so-called masses for the homeland that gathered enormous crowds. For this, he paid the highest price. The church was part of the resistance. We didn't lose hope as long as the spiritual heart of the nation was still beating. Thousands of pilgrims traveled to Jasna Góra despite martial law. There were attempts to block John Paul II from visiting Poland. But the Pope found a way to visit later anyway and pressured authorities to end martial law. We came out of this nightmare beaten and bruised, but we still remained hopeful for what laid ahead.